Sable is an unfulfilled promise. The beginning areas hit you with striking visuals and set up a grand coming-of-age story. Once you get out into the open world, it becomes increasingly bland and dull. All of the assets and art that went into this project are great, but Sable is really just wasted potential. Now, in truth, I didn't finish Sable. I got turned away from it, and I've been sitting on this review for a few months now. But I think there's something to be said about a game that has so much potential and doesn't deliver on its promises, and what could have been, what I feel, a really grand adventure. So first, let's take a look at the landscape, which I don't know if I could call it anything other than barren. While there were points of interest, they usually amounted to not much or nothing at all. You could spend a considerable amount of time forcing your way up mountains or canyons to end up in empty villages or shops with overpriced cosmetic goods that don't really move the story along. Worse yet, there was no way to improve these conditions. You would have to go through the long and awkward climb again if there wasn't a fast travel point, so no zip lines or elevators of any kind. Traveling could have been much more interesting, especially considering the lore. The idea of companionship with an immortal spirit within a machine was never fully realized. Although Sable, the character, had great interest in her machine, I was always told why and never shown why. Generally, I would count a fast travel system against a game with a focus on exploration, but that kind of generally depends on the scope of the map and the narrative itself. In Sable, it ends up replacing the traversal less out of convenience, but more out of boredom. There's nothing to do on your ship except hold down the accelerator and wait until you arrive. But let's balance this out a little bit with the positive, and take a look at Sable, the character herself. Sable gives us insights to her thoughts and her attitudes to whatever circumstances she's in. She describes the world from her perspective as she's experiencing it, which is incredibly refreshing. This is much preferred compared to audio logs or diary entries. Her emotions help me dictate responses in conversations, and her internal reactions molded her as a living entity within the world. She's the most believable person there. And as mentioned before, this is her coming-of-age story, and the build-up for her leaving home is brilliant because of this perspective. But nothing in the gameplay actually adds to this. We were given just enough nuggets of information about her home, her trepidation of leaving, and a goal that is vague enough to keep us wondering. She basically has to find her calling, but this is where the disappointment lies. What it amounts to is typical fetch quests, collecting materials, and collecting badges. It is the most ordinary adventure in a very unordinary setting. The gameplay betrays the scope of the narrative and the gravitas we feel of the experience through Sable herself. In short, she deserves better. Overall, I think the music is the true highlight of this game. It is entirely produced by Japanese Breakfast, and it is such a treat. The moment you leave on your glider and the music plays, it's incredibly fitting. And for anyone who's ever left home for unknown lands, I think it hits pretty hard. I could feel her fear, her hesitation, and the excitement all rolled into one with this music and the visuals and the gliding. And every part of this game has beautiful otherworldly sounds and expressive tones. The music does more for the landscape than even the visuals do. If you have a chance, give it a listen. It's totally worth your time, even without playing the game. Now, speaking of the visuals, we can definitely say it's attractive, but it just convinces me that Sable is just in the wrong medium. This should have been a book, or maybe even a film. I just didn't want to interact with it. I just wanted the lore. I wanted to get to know Sable, but I felt like the price was just too high. Every interaction, every interesting location was let down by dull gameplay, slim rewards, or frankly nothing at all. I also have to mention how poorly the game actually plays. It does an amazing job with the variable frame rate animations of characters against a Mobius-inspired backdrop, but there are times where the game is nearly unplayable and stutters so hard I had to put it down. This is an interactive medium. No matter how great your art, narrative, or music is, the interaction is first and foremost. I hope Japanese Breakfast comes back to making music for games because I was just floored. And I hope we see more daring visual storytelling with a story of substance and gameplay that bonds everything together. Sable really is just less than the sum of its parts. Thanks for watching. I hope you subscribe and like and all that stuff. Keep it locked here, we got another one coming soon. Thanks.